When it comes to the Skylanders and their elements, none are probably more interesting than the light and dark elements, and the reason why I say this is because of how drastically different they are from the elements that came before. The original 8 elements, fire, water, tech, magic, air, earth, life, and undead, were aspects of the Skylanders franchise since the beginning, while the light and dark elements were technically introduced to Skylanders Trap Team, even though they were spotted in pieces of concept art for the Scrap Spirals Kingdom. Alongside that, the light and the dark elements are probably the most barren elements in the franchise, the elements having a combined 10 members while the other elements have significantly larger rosters. The light and dark elements clearly have something going on with them compared to the rest of their kin, so I decided to go through their grand reveal and their further appearances throughout the franchise, and what I found paints a pretty interesting yet somewhat depressing picture of their existence. So that's what we are going to do today. We are going to discuss the legacy of the light and dark elements and see how they progress through Skylanders' twilight years. So with that being said and done, let's get going! Before we can talk about the element's appearance, we first need to talk about the build-up to their reveal, and to do that, we need to hop back into the shoes of our good old friend, Little Timmy. Now, even though you weren't able to go through the new gates or play as all the new villains, which is also very confusing and irritating, you have been noticing that some of the gates have strange question marks on them. And after catching a couple new villains, you begin to notice that for a select few, instead of telling you what trap you need to spend your non-existent allowance on to actually use them, Eon instead drops in and tells you something along the lines of, "These guys are part of a new mystery element, but I'll tell you in time." That's right, the light and dark elements were actually being built up within the game itself as a mystery to what they were, and for what it was worth, it was actually a pretty cool marketing strategy. It not only built intrigue into what these new pair of elements were, but it also built up interest for the upcoming adventure packs. And this would have all gone well if it wasn't for 3 reasons. So let's start out with the first problem, that being that it was pretty obvious to what they were supposed to be. Like, let's just be genuinely honest with ourselves. What 2 element-like concepts have been part of this franchise since the beginning that oppose each other? Secondly, the villains of these mystery elements kinda gave them away, since instead of graying out the outlines for their icons, which, you know, signal to the player what element that villain belongs to, they instead let them be their normal bright gold and blackish purple, which to any astute observer gave off a lot more information than they probably needed. But the most damning of all of these is the fact that people were already getting into the elemental gates before they should have been able to, and that was thanks to Trap Team being the buggy mess of a game that it was. Like I've said in prior videos, Skylanders Trap Team has some of the most annoying glitches and bugs in the Skylanders franchise due to how Toys for Bob had to switch from one engine to another. But one of those glitches, or group of glitches, is actually extremely useful, and those are the gate glitches. Through various methods using older Skylanders from previous games and a single trappable villain by the name of Hoodsickle, people would manage to break through every single Traptanium gate except for a single magic gate. And since the new elements weren't magic, people just broke into these mystery gates and found out what the new upcoming element was supposed to be, since, well, one of the light gates was actually one of the easiest to glitch through in the game, and people immediately deducted what the next element would be from there. So yeah, the surprise was royally spoiled thanks to Trap Team being, well, Trap Team. But hey, at least the official reveal should be interesting, and after doing as much research as I could, all Skylanders really did was drop trailers for both Nightlight and Nightmare advertising the adventure packs for each element. That's right, after all this build-up, instead of doing something crazy or out of the box, like, I don't know, teasing it publicly, they instead decided to drop it on people with no prior warning, and then just call it a day. Heck, I even went to the Discord and asked people if they remember the marketing for the element, since I thought I missed something. But nope, the ads for the new Trap Masters were all that were advertised when the light and dark elements were finally revealed, which is pretty disappointing, but at least the Skylanders that came with these elements weren't. Even though Trap Team only introduced 4 Skylanders, those being Nightlight, Nightmare, Spotlight, and Blackout, each Skylander is really good in their own right since everybody does something interesting or unique gameplay or design-wise. Nightlight experiments with AoE mechanics, Nightmare is everything Headrush wants to be with a summoning mechanic and sword to boot, Spotlight has a laser chain system, and Blackout is a Beyblade that can summon black holes. And it's not like their big debut was all that bad, they still had their respective adventure packs in the form of Midnight Museum and Sunscraper Spire, which were pretty much the best packs from that game and arguably from the Skylanders franchise. And yeah, even though their roster was pretty small, I'm pretty sure they're going to grow in the next game since— Wait, what do you mean the game doesn't have any other cores? Yeah, so funnily enough, just when the franchise decided that they were going to introduce a brand new element that is in desperate need of Skylanders, they also decided that for the next game, they would stop making core Skylanders entirely and solely focus on making the gimmick landers. This decision right here not only screwed up the Light and Dark Skylanders roster-wise, but it is also one of the major reasons why I believe the franchise died. But let's actually get back on track and return our attention to the Light and Dark Skylanders in and of themselves. In Skylanders Superchargers, every other element would get 2 Skylanders and a vehicle to pair with them each, and instead of getting the same treatment, the Light and Dark elements only got 1 Skylander each, and I think I know why this happened in the first place, but it is pretty dumb. When it comes to the roster of Skylander Superchargers, you'll immediately notice that each element comes with a returning Skylander who is supercharged and a completely new Skylander with their own character and design. Now, I know you're already asking yourself, well, if they need to reuse a Skylander for those 2 elements, why didn't they just grab one of the characters from Trap Team and supercharge them? And I have 2 guesses on why they didn't go this route. For the first reason, every supercharger is bipedal, as in nobody has more than 2 legs and only one of the 4 new element Skylanders actually fits this description, and he belongs to the life element, which meant the developers would have to design a vehicle meant for this character specifically, while making excuse for why other popular Skylanders like Spyro couldn't get a vehicle, or amputations would have been abound. And for the second reason, the Light and Dark Skylanders were just too new to get supercharger versions. This isn't something like a variant or a series, these are completely new Skylanders that have barely been around for a full year up to this point. They also don't have the following that the original cores do, and alongside that, every supercharged Skylander remixes the basic concept of that character, and that's extremely hard to do when the concept of the Light and Dark Skylanders were their elements, but that just leaves us with the Skylanders we actually got. Astro Blast, the supercharger of the Light element, is pretty lame in my eyes, but he isn't too terrible with him being designed after astronauts in space and having a pretty decent attack pattern. But the major thing that screws me up about him is his vehicle. Like, I'm not even sure what this is supposed to be. They tried everything they could to cram the light element symbol and the design of a spaceship together, and this was the result, which doesn't really look that good or appealing. On the other hand, Nightfall is probably one of the best Skylanders of the dark element, with a pretty awesome design and moveset to boot. Her vehicle is also one of the best aquatic vehicles design-wise for me too, but outside of them and the vehicle gates, the light and dark elements had nothing else to really do with this game. Yeah, they had the element zones that made them stronger like other Skylanders, but other than that, the dark and light elements were treated as an afterthought. So let's wrap things up and get to Imaginators. The light and dark elements get it far better in Imaginators than everything else, since both of them got 2 new Skylanders and a creation crystal each, one of those new Skylanders being a fan favorite, and they would also get the realms that the other elements would get as well. But with that, this is pretty much where the story of the light and dark elements come to a close, and to be frank, it was a pretty unfortunate story. Even though they have very good Skylanders, the light and dark elements didn't really have any room to grow like the other elements did. But with that being said, I want to thank you all for watching. Like always, hit the subscribe button if you enjoy content like this, share this around so I can grow the channel, leave some comments down below to make Algorithm happy, check out Return to Skylands, its Discord, and a bunch of other stuff in the description below, hype up the video to spread it to the masses, and I will see you all in the next one.